Okay. All right. Writing seminar, segment 4 project, Mythology, Charles Weiger. So, mythology defined. I'm talking about mythology and its effect on culture in this paper. First, I think I should properly define what counts as mythology and what doesn't. Anybody can just make up a fictional creature for a book or a movie. So, why doesn't a Raincore or a Blast-ended Scroot from popular franchises like Star Wars and Harry Potter count as mythical creatures? But things like the Manticore and Scylla do. Manticore and Scylla originated in ancient Greek and Persian stories, so they are creatures originating from stories, just like the Raincore, and you could say film is like the modern version of storytelling. So by that logic, you would be forgiven thinking that the Balrog from Tolkien would technically count as a myth, but it doesn't. Why is that? Well, because myths are stories that have more roots in stories relating to culture and religion. Professor Cora Agatuki, of the Central Oregon Community College defines culture, religion, and mythology. She defines culture as the abstract values, beliefs, and perceptions of the world that shape and are reflected in people's behavior. Culture encompasses all that is human-made, learned, and transmitted, especially through language, rather than what is inherited biologically. Religion is beliefs and patterns of behavior by which people try to deal with what they view as important problems but can't be solved by other means. Mythology is similar to religion, but where religion is a formally organized system of beliefs, myths are more like stories to explain things based off our current understanding of the world, and it comes from the Greek word for story. So culture, myth, and religion are all interconnected in teaching us lessons and documenting our history through our culture. They're important in telling our story. Here are a couple of examples of monster myths throughout the world and their effect on culture. And I'm going to explain why mythology is important to us and culture. Here's a couple of my personal favorite monster myths. First, the Knuckleave. Now, this is from the Orkney Islands, which are like nearby Scotland, so it's like part of the Highlands. Orcadian folklore speaks of a horrific monstrosity without skin, a rider on a horse. It's rather growing out of the steed, not mounting it. Has long arms that can reach the ground, so it can easily snatch up people. Its breath brought the plague and would wilt corpse. With it brought the winter. The Orcadian people believed the mother of the sea kept it at bay in the warmer months. This horrible monstrosity was said to have a mouth as wide as a boar, said to be the size of 10 men, and the horse half was said to have like a single burning eye, in addition to the humanoid's 2 eyes. At least this is what its land form was said to be. Maybe its true form was so horrible to look at that people just killed themselves when they saw it, like in the movie Bird Box. Being a fiend of the sea, it was from salt water, so fresh water was harmful to it. Rain could stop it, and much like the ring wraiths, crossing a river would stop it from pursuing you. The name translates to devil of the sea. Norse culture had a heavy influence on Orcadian culture, and the Knuckleave seems to have a lot of aspects of something out of Norse mythology. Orcadian culture has importance in stories about the ocean, because water can spawn lessons of salvation, but also cautionary tales of the dangers of water. Rain brings health, new life, and prosperity, but if not respected, it can bring death and be very dangerous. People need to be cautious around water. This story works as a legend to keep people wary of the dangers of the ocean, but also appreciate the new life that rain can bring. And that when winter comes, people have to remain strong and keep faith in standing together Well, the aspects of fresh water harming the Nuklavi work to remind people the importance of salvation from the rain in the warmer seasons. This legend is rooted in the Orcadian people. The story is part of their ancestors' religion and beliefs, that lessons that shape their people and represents the importance of water. So this is an important story in reminding people about the pros and cons of water, I guess. The Periton. Something from medieval folklore. The Periton was first mentioned in George Louis Borg's 1957 Book of Imaginary Beasts, which is translated from an apparently long-lost medieval manuscript that he uses as a source. They're said to be the souls of people that survived the destruction of Atlantis, but could never find their way back home, obviously, because Atlantis sunk under the ocean. Puritans are cursed. They cast a shadow of a man, and they can't be whole again until they cast their own shadow. And the only way to do that is to take the life of a person to become whole again. They're completely indestructible until they have killed a person. If a flock of these things attacks the army, really the only choice you have is to let them each kill one of them and then shoot them down as they fly away. But they were said to be really peaceful when they were whole again, casting their own shadow, but were extremely dangerous and violent when they didn't cast their own shadow and were cursed. They were prophesized to lead to the downfall of Rome. Now, I think the purpose of this is a little bit complex. This is from medieval. I think maybe the story says that sometimes to achieve enlightenment or a life goal, the price someone has to pay could be doing something, committing an unspeakable act, like taking a life. Or beauty or pureness could sometimes be only achieved from losing oneself and screwing somebody else over, or a greater good could only be achieved at the heavy price of sacrifice. Now, I don't think that's a very good lesson to take in today, but this is back in medieval times, so that people back in the Dark Ages obviously believed in killing a lot more. So the Wendigo, Native American folklore, is one of the coolest ones out there. You got things like the Thunderbird or the Skinwalker, but I think the scariest one is probably the Wendigo. Well, no, Skinwalker is definitely scarier, but the Wendigo is just my personal favorite. Bringing the agony of insatiable hunger and the stench of rotting flesh everywhere it goes, the Wendigo is one of the most well-known monsters out there in folklore. It appears in a lot of popular media like Marvel and the game Until Dawn. The Wendigo is not a true spirit. The Wendigo is usually something you become. It's the inhuman form you take when you commit the unspeakable act of cannibalism. Every bite of human flesh, you only become hungrier and more emaciated. Some depictions say it's man-like. Others recount it as antlered and more inhuman. It doesn't have lips because it chewed them off. Sometimes it's hairless. Sometimes it's depicted with yellow matted fur. So the depictions vary because this is a legend that's been around for a while, and it's different. It's described differently around the tribes of the Native Americans. Its eyesight is excellent. Its hearing is excellent to help it stalk its prey. Some stories say that only a shaman can kill it with the tried and true silver bullet. Other stories say you have to remove its heart and cook it over a fire. This is the Wendigo appearing in Marvel Comics and the game Until Dawn. This story exists as an important tale warning people of the price of greed and selfishness and isolation, as the myth originated in a time of cold winter, where people in the tribe had to band together as a community to protect each other and keep each other alive. 1636 dates the oldest known written account of the Wendigo from Paul Le Jeune, a French Jesuit missionary. He lived with the Algonquin people in modern-day Quebec, and he wrote that a woman warned against an Achin that had eaten many tribal members and would eat more if he was not called elsewhere. Murder and cannibalism was often blamed on the Wendigo, such as the 1879 case of Swift Runner in Alberta, Canada, who pleaded innocent that a Wendigo spirit entered him through a dream and forced him to kill and eat his family. Well, it didn't go so well for Swift Runner, because he was found guilty and hanged. Wendigo psychosis became a 20th century term by some missionaries and psychologists. This was describing a culture-bound syndrome to First Nation people. Symptoms of delusions of being possessed by an evil spirit, compulsion for human flesh, and sometimes cannibalism. Indigenous artists used the Wendigo to personify violence, personification, and environmental harm. The Wendigo tale exists as a warning of the price of cannibalism. Cannibalism is a horrific act, and you lose yourself when you eat another person. So this story, like the Nukkalavi, is there as a lesson about when the winter comes, you need to stay strong as a community and help each other out, and not be selfish and eat other people for survival. Going into Persian mythology, and then asking the question, why the hell did this thing not appear in the Prince of Persia video games? We're talking about the terrifying manticore. It translates to man-eater, with the body of a lion, face of a man, and a dart-shooting scorpion tail. Medieval and Persian folklore depict this monster. The first mention comes from Cestius in the book Indica, the 5th century work. Cestius writes, here's a quote from that. Cestius writes that amongst these same men there are found an animal called the manticora, which has 3 rows of teeth like a comb, the face and ears of a human, and bluish eyes. It is red in color with the body of a lion, and a tail with stingers like a scorpion. Its voice is the sound of if pipes were mixed with a trumpet. It is a creature of great speed, with avidity goes after human flesh. It was a horrible sight to behold, with multiple rows of teeth, and a scorpion tail capable of shooting spikes. Tupilak. Of all the mythical creatures there are, none are more unimaginably horrific than the Tupilak of Inuit folklore. This creature was a powerful entity made by a shaman with the purpose of punishing their enemies, carrying out the will he desired, but was unwilling to commit the unspeakable acts needed to reach a wanted goal. The Tupilak was crafted and stitched together from the remains of dead children and pieces of animals. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. When constructing this creature, one wore a backwards facing hood, as so the creature would not be able to recognize its master. Because the creature was only as powerful as its creator, and if sent on a more powerful witch doctor, it could be turned against the creator. Thus the sorcerer could have access to the creature's mind and shouldn't be able to see its creator's face through its memories. Which is why they wore a backwards hood, as no one could find out that anyone sunk to such depths of depravity to construct such an abomination against God and the earth, or else they would probably be cancelled. That's a little joke I put in. Effigies have been made by craftsmen depicting the Tupilak. They were said to be cursed, at least the original effigies were. All the original effigies were thrown into the ocean, but recreations of those are still found today, and they're usually carved out of whale bones. The legend of the Tupilak predates Christianity's arrival to Greenland. But when Christianity came to Greenland through the missionaries, they quickly silenced the idea of the Tupilak because it was the work of the devil. Wow, who would have thought sewing together dead children and animals would be considered offensive to the Christian missionaries? The stories and the legends still exist today. Like, we still know about this. There aren't like new stories of this that happen, obviously, but the legend of this creature lives on, and you can learn about this through the history of the Inuit people. I find difficulty in determining the purpose for Inuit culture this story has to offer. It doesn't seem to teach any valuable lessons or explain why things happen. It just seems to be a scary story to invoke fear. Perhaps it personified the price of forbidden knowledge and showed that some exploration of medicine and creation is better left off forbidden. In conclusion, mythology is very important to us. It impacts our culture and teaches us the lessons for living a good life. How to be cautious in a dangerous world, but how to be fearless and protect the people you love. These stories are the people of this planet's heritage and culture, lessons we have lived by for centuries. And these stories are the foundations for the big epic tales told in blockbuster movies today. Mythology is what defines and unites people from around the world. The stories define us and teach us lessons. That's how it's important to us as people. And there you go. Pictures